we don't really have a rational answer, maybe, because how it started, like since November 2021, it was started like with the NOS. I don't know how can you explain this?
Although, final comment here, I gotta add that, I believe that
when they started, actually, the dollar was against the Turkish lira, I think the 11 point something, or the 10
11 and a half. 11 and a half, give or take. Exactly.
Yes, today almost 15 liras.
Exactly. So over the 3 month
period, Treasury is making losses every day, which means
over the last 3 months, what the Treasury has already paid actually amounts to 40 billion Turkish liras. And absolutely crazy, and it gets crazier still. So I'm hoping they're not going to wait until the point where even increasing interest rates is not going to bring down the US dollar exchange rate.
Hello everyone from Istanbul, this is Faizan. We will talk about the realities of the economic crisis in Turkey. My guest this week, Hünkar Özyashar, finance and banking instructor at Platon Consulting. Welcome our show, how are you?
Great, doing great, yeah. Greeting you from the beautiful capital of Ankara. How are you?
Oh, cool. Well, so far, so good, let's say. Well, the fact is people around the world wonder and asking the same question. What is happening to the Turkey's economy? Is there a simple answer to this? Let's start like that.
Surely, yeah. I mean, the news of the day is inflation, obviously. And this is a timely interview, and that inflation figures for March have just been announced. I got them right here in front of me. I can go over them. But basically, inflation is kind of out of control. It's at that critical threshold where, you can consider it getting out of control or already out of control. Although we got to, make a note here. It's not hyperinflation, according to the strictest sense of the word. No, this does not qualify as hyperinflation. But prices are at a level where they're producing some degree of desperation in the general public, myself included, I got to say. Every time you go to the supermarket, you don't know what the price level will be, how much you're going to pay for the goods that you're buying on a regular basis. This is center news. And what is behind that is basically the appreciation of the US dollar against the Turkish lira, number one. And number two, the price advances of commodities in the global markets. Those two combined produce an inflation figure. Let me just, share with you a couple numbers here. 12-month running CPI, 61.14%, huge number. Consumer prices are up 5.46% during the last month alone, and PPI, producer prices, up 114.9% over the last 12 months. This is basically what's going on. The major fear is that this will get further out of control and, result in a full-blown crisis. Although, final comment here, I got to add that, I believe that it is kind of peaking. I don't believe it will get much higher than this, at least in the near term, barring a disaster. I believe so, yeah, I believe so. Barring a disaster.
Believe or you believe?
No, I believe it. No, I'm not giving it a party line, just telling you my honest opinion. I believe they're close to peaking.
Okay. But how do we explain the reflection of the persistent interest rate cut in Turkey on the economy? It's not accepted that it's caused the inflation. So how do we explain this inflation? How poor did the Turkish people get more? I mean,
tremendously poor. Yeah. I mean, basically, you tell me, how much has the minimum wage gone up? Some like 50% so far, right? Year over year, less than 50% or around 50%. But prices are up tremendously. Another interesting thing here is, what inflation figure do we believe? Because it's already abnormal, looking at the numbers in front of me, for the CPI to be up 61%, whereas the PPI is up 114%. So producer prices, the cost of goods, is going up tremendously, but consumer prices are not catching up. And that's been going on for a very long time. That's been going on at least for the last 6 to 7 months, which isn't normal. Calls into question, the CPI numbers as well. So basically, yeah, people have gotten tremendously poorer. On Twitter, somebody posted a comment the other day. Let me try and remember and try and translate it into English. They said, including the U.S. embargo in 1978, Turkey has faced an embargo by the United States in 1978, and it got really ugly. It's not that ugly right now.
Is that so? I thought many people, find the similar with the 90s economy.
Surely, no. Basically, the tweet was including the 1978 embargo. Oh. Have you ever seen prices being so unaffordable? The purchasing power being so low. I don't know if we're at the worst ever. I don't know. You tell me. But it's ugly. It's ugly. That much we can say.
Well, what awaits us in the near future then?
Well, the major question is the advance in the U.S. dollar to Turkish lira exchange rate going to continue? If it does, pretty soon it'll hit a crisis level. But a further potential crisis is the trade deficit. That too was announced today, and the trade deficit is 8.24 billion US dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a very, very unusual situation in that exports are going up dramatically. Exports are breaking records, but at the same time, primarily due to the very high energy prices in the global markets, imports are going up at an even faster rate. If this continues any further, and I'm talking merely a couple more months, we are facing the potential question of a Turkish default on its international debt. Not saying it will happen, but that will become a more probable outcome if this continues. And but again, the reason I'm thinking we are close to the peak level in inflation is a few things have hit rock bottom already. For instance, as far as foreign investors leaving the Turkish markets, that has already happened to the maximum possible degree. They cannot leave any further because, just to give one example, in the bond market, in the fixed income market, the share of foreign investors was 20% at its lowest. That used to be a low rate. Presently, it's 2%. Presently, it is 2%. So in the stock market too, it's not 2% in the stock market. It's much higher, in the 40s. But all the foreign investors that are fearing any potential negative outcome have already left. There isn't a whole lot of people, that could possibly leave Turkey in terms of investment money.
And are they going to come back soon?
I don't know, but not a whole lot left to leave. Not a whole lot left to, pack their bags and go. So with that in mind, we might be close to a peak in inflation. Hopefully, we're going to be seeing the peak within a month or two at the very most, I'm hoping.
Oh. Well, also inflation in Turkey is different from that in America or Europe. So purchasing power in Turkey has decreased a lot. So people can't really afford the prices. So why can't they find a solution to this? Or they can? Can they?
Well, I mean, a short-term solution would be increasing the interest rates, as you've said. Simply hiking the interest rates could be a solution.
But they don't do it. Why do you think so?
I don't know. You tell me. As a citizen of Turkey who is very interested in these matters, you tell me. I don't have a good answer.
Actually, we don't really have a rational answer, maybe, because how it started, since November 2021, it was started with the NOS. I don't know how can you explain this?
Sure. Let's give a brief overview of what has happened, and then let's take a step back and try and explain the potential rational basis for it. Now, towards the end of last year, interest rates came down dramatically. And not surprisingly, the United States dollar against the Turkish lira appreciated tremendously. We've gone from an exchange rate of, how much was it, six something, to all the way up to 12, all the way up to, 13, 14 even. At its peak, it hit 18 for a very brief period of time. Then it came back. So cutting the interest rates in the face of globally advancing interest rate levels has basically skyrocketed the exchange rate. And the way this was explained by the authorities was by making a reference to religious rules. And as you know, in Islam, interest is forbidden. Earning real interest rate is prohibited. Although that calls into question, why the present interest rate is less prohibited than, a higher rate. Is 20% more inhibited than 17? That nobody can answer. But basically, the reduction in interest rates was justified by making reference to Islamic principles. Then the US dollar skyrocketed. And since then, the insistence has continued. They're not jacking up interest rates and bringing down the US dollar exchange rate. As a result, the inflation is very, very persistent. And at this stage, they don't have really much of a choice. They must increase interest rates soon. If they continue with this potentially, questionable stance, for the lack of a better word, where the US dollar will go is anybody's guess. But again, I mean, it's already appreciated so tremendously. It has gone up by close to 100%, which is just an insane figure. How much more room it has on the upside, that's kind of questionable, really. But basically, to give an overview to our international friends, that's what has happened. The interest rates has been cut in Turkey with reference to Islamic principles, and it's been sitting at that very low level ever since. And needless to say, on a global basis, the major central banks, are increasing interest rates. So that makes Turkey stand out even more. It makes us even more of a contrarian, which is not good news for the Turkish economy, obviously.
Yeah.
One addition, unless you had another question.
Well, yeah, you tell me.
One quick addition.
Sure.
The reliance in Turkey on bank loans is enormous. Wherever you go in the world, you go to the United States, you go to Europe, and everybody's talking about the very high level of debt across the markets. Now, in Turkey, especially in the private sector, in terms of companies, the reliance of bank debt is orders of magnitude higher than in the United States or in Europe. To give you a rough example, in Turkey, if you look at the average corporation, 2/3 of the balance sheet is financed by bank debt, whereas 1/3 is equity, shareholder equity. If you go to international markets, whatever market you look at, the portion of the balance sheet that is financed by bank loans is never above 50%, whereas in Turkey is 66%. So there's a bit of a rational justification, I got to emphasize, but there's a bit of a justification for wanting to keep interest rates low because the market is so reliant on bank debt. And most of the bank debt is relatively short term. So the minute you increase interest rates, the interest expense of corporations goes up dramatically, potentially even forcing some into bankruptcy. But then again, does reducing interest rates so dramatically, with that in mind, is that justified? And the answer is not really, it isn't. But again, if you wanted to really put yourself in the shoes of the policymakers in Turkey and try and understand where they might be coming from, other than the religious justification, there's a potential minor justification for the present policy.
But on the contrary, currency-protected deposit accounts have been opened.
Yeah, the currency-linked deposit.
Yeah. Actually, you're paying the interests.
Sure.
So.
Sure.
So what's the difference then?
Sure. Would you like us to give a very short 30-second overview of what these are for our international friends?
Sure. Yeah, for the people maybe who doesn't know.
We have a monstrosity, something very interesting called currency-linked deposit accounts. What happens is you commit for a minimum of 3 months, and once you open an account, they promise you a fixed interest rate, which fluctuates between 16 and 17% right now as we speak. And you are promised the higher of that fixed interest rate or the appreciation in the US dollar Turkish lira exchange rate. Let's say you open a 3-month account and the fixed rate is 17%. At the end of the 3-month period, the annual percentage rate of 17 over a 3-month period comes out to a net of, let's say, 4.2%, give or take.
When they started, actually, the dollar was against the Turkish lira, I think the 11 point something or the 10
11 and a half. 11 and a half, give or take. Exactly.
Yes, today almost 15 liras.
Exactly. So over the 3-month
period, Treasury is making losses every day, which means...
Sure. I got a couple numbers in front of me.
Yes, can you tell us that too?
Indeed. Yeah. But just to finish the explanation real quick.
Sure.
Over the course of the 3-month period, the fixed amount comes out to something like 4.25%. And if the US dollar against the Turkish lira has appreciated more than that, let's say 6%, you get that higher number, 6%. And the difference between the fixed amount and the floating amount, in this example, the difference between the 4.25% and 6%, i.e. 1.75 percentage points, that is paid in collaboration with between the central bank and the treasury. So the government pays the excess return that you're getting. My goodness, I mean, it was an enormous burden on the economy. How much was it? Over the last 3 months, it amounted to something like 40 billion.
42?
40 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the last 3 months, what the Treasury has already paid actually amounts to 40 billion Turkish liras. And Mr. Yeah, absolutely crazy. And it gets crazier still. A very renowned and respected economist, Mr. Mahfiye İlmez, has performed an analysis, and he says if the US dollar keeps advancing at this rate over the course of the following year, we are set to pay out of the pockets of the government approximately 400 billion Turkish liras, which gets to be an insane figure. And of course, you're printing that money, which would cause even higher inflation. It is an odd situation indeed. Yeah.
It's horrible. I mean, especially the prices and getting higher like every day. Even the I showed I posted actually yesterday from my Instagram at Bahar Faizan. Anyhow, so only the tomato last year, this time it was like 4 lira, and then this year, this time it's like 34 lira. It's crazy. I don't know how much or how many times,
Yeah.
Much worse.
And you know what? I don't know if you agree, but the quality of tomatoes has gone down as well.
Yeah. Also, indeed. I don't even count the doubts, the rent is, I don't even, count right now. So my question is, how do we break this cycle?
I mean, at some point you got to bite the bullet and increase interest rates. But more importantly, you have to, well, it's going to become inevitable. I'm much more optimistic than the average Turk because this has happened, if you remember, back in 2018 as well. The US dollar appreciated tremendously. Once again, same spiel. Yeah. It doubled from 3-something to 6-something, essentially doubled. And everybody thought they're never going to...
We spent millions of dollars, billion dollars.
Billions of dollars, to control it. Yeah. And everybody thought they're not going to increase interest rates because, the political stance is what it is. And they did. They did increase interest rates, if you remember. And they increased them by 600 basis points or 650 basis points. So, and it's still the same political party in power. So they would do it again. I believe the interest rates will go up again because at the end of the day, I believe when push comes to shove, when there's no more alternatives, they will increase interest rates. That is, of course, only one of the many steps. You never want to push it up to a point where, even increasing interest rates is not going to solve the problem. If you push it too far and if you wait too long to take the medicine, then it turns into a very acute illness, and even taking the medicine will no longer reduce the pain. So I'm hoping they're not going to wait until the point where even increasing interest rates is not going to bring down the US dollar exchange rate. But we are very close to the point where it'll force their hand, and the markets are going to push the people in charge of the economy into a corner and force them into increasing interest rates. I believe we are fairly close to that point. And of course, we're hoping that the war in Ukraine is going to be over and the global raw material prices are going to come down some. I'm not expecting them to come down dramatically.
Gas prices and oil prices.
Yeah, everything. That's another hope. Will it materialize? Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe not in the near future, but again, even in the international markets, I do believe that we are close to a peak point in prices, and they're not going to go up much higher. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah. My last question is actually, will we experience a currency shock in Turkey soon?
This is already a currency shock. I mean, we are in the midst of
but they're talking about like 20 liras, over 20 liras. That's why I'm asking more.
Sure. My expectation, if that happens, interest rates are going up and they're going to bring the dollar down. That's not the big question. The big question is, are international investors going to lose hope in the Turkish markets? And are we going to keep pushing to a point where even increasing interest rates is not going to work? Because you can get to that point. You can get to a point where you increase the interest rates by 600, 650 basis points and the US dollar still doesn't come down. That is possible. I'm hoping we're not going to see that. I don't expect to, but that's the real danger.
Okay, Mr. Özyashar, last comment. Any last comment before we close it?
Well, quick comment to our international viewers. don't lose hope in Turkey. I have not. Don't lose hope in Turkey. This market is
So
going
you
to...
never know what will happen in one day.
One last comment, and I say this very honestly. I'm not saying this out of a sense of patriotism. Especially the stock market in Turkey is so cheap. A lot of markets in Turkey are at such depressed levels that if a significant change occurs in Turkey, and I'm leaving that open-ended, you fill in the blanks, but if a significant change occurs in Turkey, markets are going to take off like a rocket. The potential gains in the Turkish market are absolutely enormous, so don't give up hope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Özyashar, joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.